we want to welcome to the program Margot Alvarez. Hello, Margot. How's everything?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the program. So let's start off with something that you did very well, and you were involved in something called CrossFit, which was a competition that combined strength and stamina, also speed and endurance. How did you get involved in the world of CrossFit?
So I have been introduced to it through some friends back in the day, back in like 2011, and I was a personal trainer beforehand, and so I loved obviously challenging myself, kind of seeing what I could be capable of, not only physically but also mentally. And so that was something when I tried my first class, I absolutely loved it. It was burpees and snatches, and it was just very challenging in a lot of ways. I'd never really lifted a barbell, and so I just loved the grit that I essentially had to kind of pull out from within to change up my training.
Excellent. Now, there have been some people that have watched CrossFit and some that have not. Can you kind of explain briefly to the listeners what a CrossFit competition was all about?
Yeah, so there's, different types of competition. You might have local competitions, but within the CrossFit realm, there was, for the good number of years, there was an open where anyone could sign up. There was a big community event where anyone could sign up. Then once you do that competition over the 5 weeks, you have 1 week per workout. You have 4 or 5 days to complete it, and then at the end of that, it was 5 weeks. If you're in the top of your region, top 20, for example, then you move on to regionals. And then regionals was 8 different regions across the U.S. and the world. From there, you go and compete other people from other regions. So the last one was in 2018, and from there you competed with people from the state of Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and a handful of other states. From there, the final 5 women and final 5 men would continue on to the world event, the CrossFit Games, which usually is held in July or August. And for the number of years, it was in Los Angeles, in Carson, California, and in the past 3 years it had moved to Madison, Wisconsin. And so that essentially is competing against the top 40 women and men. Obviously, women competing against women, men competing against the men, but you're essentially going to get the fittest 40 women in the world, and then from there you compete for that number 1 spot, obviously.
Wow, that's awesome, right there. I want to stay more on CrossFit in particular. I mentioned to the audience that CrossFit is a competition that's comprised of speed and strength and stamina and also endurance. Can you tell the audience just what was some of your best events competing in CrossFit?
Yeah, so some of my best events was a marathon row in 2018. I finished first in that one, and essentially you had to row a marathon on the row machine. And obviously that is a very long endurance event. My time was a little bit over 3 hours, and you essentially had no cutoff time, meaning you had to finish rowing until you finished the marathon distance. That was one of the events that I finished first in. Another one that was very similar was a half marathon row that they had 5 years prior to that, which was in 2013, but it was a 2-part series, meaning you had to row a 2K, 2,000 meters, and essentially get a score there, and then you had to continue into a half marathon as well. So endurance events were obviously that was about an hour and 28 minutes. So other events that I did really well on was a running event. This was in 2015. It was running and kind of a strongman implement where you had to run upstairs over a berm and then move a strongman piece. Essentially, it was a yoke. You had to move it so much feet. I believe it was 50 feet, and you had to do, I believe, 4 rounds of that. Another event that I did really well on was a pegboard event where you had to ascend on the pegboard up and down 3 times. Then from there you moved to the rower. You did, I believe, 16 calories, and then from there you moved to an assault bike where you did 12 calories. And by that time, the time ran out, the time cut out. So it's a lot of different time domains and a lot of different events that are testing you in different metabolic pathways. So it could be long endurance events, but also could be short sprints. And so it's constantly changing. And you constantly have to rise to that challenge and say, hey, can I do this? Am I capable of this? If not, then you give your best effort.
Wow, that's awesome to hear. You mentioned with some of your best events in the CrossFit, the majority of the events that you mentioned had a lot to do with endurance and running. Did you have a track and field or a distance running background growing up?
No, I actually played volleyball and golf in high school, in junior high and high school. So I definitely loved running. In university level, I just did running on my own, so I liked the ability to go outside and just run and kind of clear my mind. And so I think that created a little bit of a base for me. One of the events I did in college was a outrigger canoe paddling, and that was just a club sport that I did outside of university. But those events were shorter distance, 800 meters, maybe a mile sprints in a way. But then one of the events I had done my second year into that was a 41-mile outrigger canoe paddle from Molokai Island to the island of Oahu. So I might have had a little bit of experience in endurance, but it wasn't like I competed at a collegiate level there.
Oh, wow, that's awesome right there. I want to stay now with, I'm looking at some of your benchmark stats right here. Now, I'm looking at you did a back squat of 275 pounds. You did a clean and jerk
Correct.
of 230 pounds. And, of course, your snatch was a 190 pounds. You deadlifted 410 pounds. Wow, that's amazing. Do you remember that competition when you deadlifted that much?
Yeah, so that deadlift competition, that was actually not in the competition. That was out. I was training with a friend in California, and I hit a PR of 410 pounds, changed a little bit of my setup, so it allowed me to be in a better position to pull that. At 2018 games, actually, the same day that I rode the marathon, early in the day I pulled 400. So it wasn't necessarily a PR, but to be able to pull 400 pounds and then row a marathon the same day, you can see the wide variety of obviously like athletic capabilities that an individual has. The goal obviously is to break that and get a little bit higher of a PR of a deadlift. What's one of my favorite movements, but I think it speaks a lot to obviously like posterior chain and being strong on the backside, your glutes, hamstrings, erectors, your back in general as well.
I want to stay with CrossFit again. You know, the training seems very intense. It's unique in some ways. We see it's a combination of running and also weightlifting, and it's just comprised as we mentioned earlier about speed, strength, and endurance and things of that nature. Can you explain what the training process is like preparing for a CrossFit competition?
So everyone's a little bit different, but for myself, it was a buildup of a lot of volume, and it took numerous years to get there. I started training in 2012 or 2011, which is regular classes, and then I had to include a little bit more training into my day, so I started training 3 to 4 hours, maybe 5 days a week. And it wasn't just straight through. It'd be a warm-up and then some mobility, some accessory work, some lifting, and then a Metcon or two. And when I say Metcon, like a workout where you're doing 3 rounds for time, or 8-minute AMRAP where you're doing as many rounds as possible within that 8-minute time frame. And then as the years evolved and as competing kind of became, not that it wasn't a beginning of my focus, but as I competed and qualified for the 2013 games, training needed to go up, volume needed to go up over time, just because I needed to be able to still be able to compete at the level of the athletes I was there at. And so if I want to improve, then I need to put more time. So eventually my training got up to about 6 or 7 hours in the gym, and that could be, again, broken up. It doesn't have to be straight 6 to 7 hours all the way through. But it was a lot of time in the gym, but that was my job in a way where I was focusing on training, coaching a little bit at the same time, and that allowed me to improve and get better, and I essentially increased my level of fitness. And that would be multiple lifts in a day. Maybe I'm back squatting, maybe I'm cleaning, and then maybe I'm doing some gymnastics component. Maybe that's muscle-ups or pull-ups. Maybe I'm doing some running intervals, or I'm doing multiple different movements like double unders and rowing and kettlebell swings where I'm trying to train my body in different modalities. And I would spend a good hour or so doing mobility and prepping my body for that, because it's a lot of time in the gym, and to make sure recovery is also is stressed as important in that lifestyle as well.
Wow, that's a lot that goes into CrossFit. It's not just training for a competition. It's so many interesting components and interesting parts into that. And certainly the training is definitely unique, as you explained it very thoroughly, but also about the diet. Is your diet basically the same when prepared for CrossFit, or you don't really follow any specific meal plan for competitions?
I think everyone's different, has their own kind of meal and plan. For myself, I was following like a 40-30-30, meaning 40% carbs, 30% protein, and 30% fat. So with CrossFit or any HIIT style type of training, your body needs some sort of glycogen to be fueled by those workouts. And again, since I was training so much, I needed a good amount of carbs. So at one point, I was trying to eat 300 to 350 grams of carbs a day. I don't recommend that, obviously, to everyone depending on their lifestyle and the training. Everyone works out differently, but my diet definitely was changed where I was focused on performance, and so I was needing to fuel my body for performance. And that was the main stressor, was like making sure I'm getting enough food in my body so I can recover. If I was feeling or falling short of my macronutrients that I was trying to hit, then it's like I might enjoy some donuts. I'll have my glass of wine, but then I'd also make sure I was eating enough at the end of the day. Because if I'm falling short and I only have 250 grams of carbs, that may not, like, oh, it may seem a lot, but for myself, if I'm putting a lot of energy out, I need to make sure I'm refueling that so I have the energy for the next day of training. And it's hard to eat 300 to 350 grams of carbs a day when, like, you're training a lot, you're spending good time in the gym, but then you also need to make sure you're breaking that up so you can fuel your body, because eating it all at night would be hard to eat that much of food in one sitting.
Wow, it's amazing how scientific. It's amazing how you break down just the scientific aspects of food. I mean, people, professional athletes, or people that just compete just for fun. You know, it's very important with as you mentioned, you broke it down about carb intake and protein and fats and things of that nature. It's just amazing how food and training and all of that goes hand in hand. But again, every individual is different, as you said earlier. So it's just amazing how food plays an important role in just preparing for contests, but that's how everybody handles it differently. I want to stay with just the diet in particular. Do you consume a certain amount of sugar? Because I know, again, that's a lot of, with these competitions, it's grueling, it's intense, and then, you know, not just with the strength part, but with endurance events. Are there any times when you've bottomed out, or do you consume some type of sugar to prevent from going low in the competitions?
Yeah, the times that I can specifically remember were more endurance type events, specifically the half marathon and the marathon row, where you're continuously to work or move for X amount of hours or time. And so that was something where I'd either go for like those GOOs or those Gatorade blocks. They have them, they're kind of like quick carbs that you can essentially consume or eat, coconut water, some sort of like electrolyte water, like a Gatorade. I mean, that's something quick that you can consume and eat and essentially still move, like still row while you're ingesting those. And that's something that I've done even before I got into CrossFit, when I did a couple half marathons. And again, like I said, I love to run. So being out there long endurance running that I did with friends, it was maybe like I had a little bit of water or Gatorade or electrolytes or some sort of like quick goo that I can consume and eat, that I feel like maybe I'm about to hit or I'm about to drop, and that would kind of help pick me up, just because that's a long time to kind of continuously move when you're having that output of energy and you need something to replenish that.
That's interesting to hear right there. I was just always curious about that, how the athletes kind of, when they prepare, and I was asking them how much sugar do they consume in order to prevent from those things from happening. So that's interesting right there. But, you know, CrossFit's definitely something that's taken the world by storm, and people they have continued to compete in these competitions. Let's move on now to something that you said you mentioned earlier that you competed in high school, volleyball and golf. I want to talk specifically about the sport of golf. How did you develop your love for the game of golf?
Yeah, so my dad used to play it when he was younger, and when my sisters and we moved to Montana, he enrolled us in kind of like a 6-week little like intro program at the like local golf course there in Missoula, Montana, and it was something that I loved. It was different. It was challenging. All three, myself, my two sisters, all three of us were doing it. We'd do it for 6 weeks, and I think I really took a liking, maybe a little bit more than my sisters. And then from there, I think I was 8 years old when I started that, and then I continued to play for the next 10 years, competed in high school. And I think it's something that has really shaped me as an individual and a human going forward in kind of life right now, where it's like you're by yourself and you might be on a team, but it's like you're by yourself, you're on the course for 18 holes or, 72 holes, 36 holes, depending on how long you're playing. And you have to be mentally strong and have that mental fortitude and not let like your entire game or your entire hole go to crap if you have a bad shot. And so I think that mental fortitude, mental strength was definitely something I was maybe drawn to. Maybe I didn't really know it at the time, but looking back, it's something that I think shaped who I was. It taught me a lot of patience, taught me a lot of kind of mental strength in the sense of, hey, like don't get upset if like you have one bad hole or one bad shot. You still got to keep it together for the rest. And I think that can be applied in anything in life, business, personal life, professional career, etc. I mean, even athletics in any aspect. And that's something that I think really stuck with me. And I wanted to compete at a high level at college, and I didn't, but I still enjoyed it with some friends from time to time.
Wow, golf is the ultimate game of patience and as you mentioned, the mental fortitude, and CrossFit and golf are like worlds apart. Whereas in CrossFit, people are shouting and like, yeah, come on, let's do this, and everything is very high impact. Whereas in golf, it's the tempo is completely different. It's laid back, and like you said, you missed a shot, you just goes on to the next one. I want to stay with the game of golf for a moment. What you mentioned of the things that has helped you out with, not just in athletic life, but just in all areas and facets of life. You compete in, I'm looking at it here, it says the World Long Drive Competitions. Can you explain to the audience what a World Long Drive Competition is?
Yeah, so my first year was, I want to say that 2019. Essentially, you have 8 balls to hit. They changed the rules this year. I think it's 6 balls, but 8 balls, and you have 3 minutes to hit those 8 balls on a grid. So it's the width of a football field. It's about 500 yards long, and you essentially are trying to have the furthest ball. So you want to hit it as far as you can, but at the same time, you have to stay within that grid. And if you bounce and it rolls out, then it doesn't count, obviously, so you need to keep it on there. So it's similar to golf where it's like accuracy is important, precision is important, but I noticed when I went to my first competition, there was a lot more focus on obviously a little more strength, a little more power on when you're swinging. So when you think of golf in the swing, it's a little more, there's that tempo back and forth. With the long drive, it's a little bit different. And I noticed when I first went there, I was like, man, a lot of these swings don't necessarily look like a traditional golf swing, what I was used to growing up. It had a little bit changed, but after talking to some individuals, a lot of them were either prior baseball, some of the women were prior softball, so it was just interesting and intriguing to see how that crossover from one sport transferred into the golf. So it's exciting and exhilarating, and for me, transferring from being a competitive athlete and then starting my wine business and then going into the realm of World Long Drive, it's like, all right, well, if I want to go compete like in the LPGA, it's like, all right, well, I have to spend a lot more time focusing on that. I need to work on my drive. I need to be working on my short game, my putts. For long drive, it's like, all right, well, I can just focus specifically on this, and then if I want to pursue anything else in terms of goals or aspirations, then I can eventually go there. But I think it was a good segue to get back into the golf realm and kind of work and learn a little bit more about that sport.
You mentioned the LPGA. That was going to be segue to my next question. Are you? do you want to compete in the LPGA in the near future, or do you want to stay just competing doing the World Long Drive competitions?
I think for now I'll just continue on the World Long Drive. I mean, the women that are in there, it's amazing to see what they've done, and it's always intriguing because I always like to I tend to gravitate towards challenging situations I've noticed over the years, and I tend to say, hey, like if I can do this, like let me try it. But I think for now with the schedule I have and the time that I have running the business, it's like the long drive is something that I can dedicate time to and still have time for my business and everything else that I'm doing.
All right, fair enough. And now let's talk about a show. The name of it is called The Titan Games, and it's hosted by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and also Carrie Champion. How did you come across the Titan Games?
So I had applied for American. I was reached out to for American Ninja Warrior end of 2018, and so I applied for that. The casting team was like, you should check it out. So I sent them submission, got selected, had the opportunity to go do that. And then end of 2019, the same casting team had reached out to me and said, hey, we're casting for the Titan Games. And I had watched the first season, and I thought, man, this is a little bit more up my alleyway in terms of the events or the items and the tests that they had on there. And so I was like, yeah, that'd be really cool, have the opportunity to possibly do that. So put together an application, did a video submission, and then talked to the casting team. And then I was selected to be one of the 30 women to go down to like the preliminaries or the combine they had previous to filming. Did that, and then it was obviously a variety of tests and events to see how we would test our body in different metabolic pathways, so like running, sprints, and that was a really cool opportunity to go do that. And it was kind of like, all right, let's interact with everyone else, see how it goes. And then from there, about a week later, I found out that I was selected to be one of the 18 women to continue on to the show. So I think life will unfold certain ways sometimes. You never know which way it's going to unfold, but it was really cool to be able to have the opportunity to be selected and go down there and then be selected to be on the show.
Wow, let's stay with the show for a moment. I mean, this is, the competitions. I mean, there was a show back in the day called The American Gladiators, and then you had other
Mm-hmm.
similar shows like that. But the Titan Games, it seems unique. Was your training similar to what you did for CrossFit to prepare for the Titan Games, or did you do you didn't have to do anything special?
Yeah, it was pretty similar as before. I added a little more odd object training into my routine. So odd object meaning like heavy D-balls or a little bit more sledgehammer work, kind of more unilateral stuff. I still incorporate a little bit of kind of ninja stuff in ninja training because it's like I'd seen from previous years, like you might have to swing up and over stuff. You definitely needed some strength there, but you also needed agility and being able to kind of go with the flow because you really didn't know what obstacles or what tests there would be. So it was just a little more, all right, how can I be a little more adaptive to maybe training a little bit more odd item stuff versus just training in the gym and lifting a barbell. Obviously, a lot of the cardiovascular endurance aspect is still important where you need to be able to have the ability to recover. Some of the events went on longer than you anticipate, so you want to make sure you're ready for that.
Let's stay with the events for a moment. What were some of your favorite events competing in the competition?
Ooh, that's a good question. I really loved the nuts and bolts one, the first event that I went up against with Kelly Stone, because a lot of that was about strategy. You didn't really know, you knew how much it weighed, but you didn't know, like, all right, you're trying to do the math, like, how much weight do I take off? How is it going to feel? We never got to test any of the events before going out there. So I think that was one of my funnest events, or most fun events, because it was a lot of strategy and timing. And once you got to that other side, you kind of wanted to stay there. You didn't want to have to go back and change weights because that obviously eats into time. And then the Mount Olympus obviously was great because it took a lot of different events into it, being able to flip a box, being able to do a little bit of kind of ninja stuff where you're moving your body in space, but then also having to lift items. And then also, like, that's a little bit longer of an event where you're like, how quickly can I push myself? How fast can I go? And make sure I don't, like, die off or make sure I don't, like, taper off my speed and my pace. So I'd say those were probably two, like, the top events that I had or that I enjoyed.
You were in the finals. You competed against a great competitor in Danny Spiegel. Everything seemed to be going well until you got to the kick-out competition. What happened? Because I'm looking and I'll say, okay, Danny was able to finally kick the cylinder out, but then you were still having a little problems. What happened in that particular event?
Yeah, so for that one, I thought that my body weight and running into the wall would be enough to crack it. Didn't know specifically what it was made of. I imagine it was some sort of like drywall or something on the front end. But my thought process was like, all right, if I run into that wall and I just give it everything I got, one, I should crack it or just like plow through it. That was my mindset. I just visualized that. And then when I ran and hit that wall and it didn't budge, I was like, all right, well, that didn't obviously work. So I tried to change it up. And I did Taekwondo back in the day when I was really young, so I was thinking, all right, well, if I can get some sort of, like, front kick or side kick to it to hopefully, like, crack it or weaken it, then eventually I could, like, kick my way through. But that didn't happen. And so it's obviously frustrating, and I wanted to break through that wall, but it's like I know that I'm going to keep my head up, and then I was like, all right, just keep trying, keep going no matter what. And then obviously time ran out. So it was something that I definitely wanted, but I gave it my all, and I will continue to break through other walls that I face.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, congratulations on your effort on that program. The Rock, he's one of the executive producers. What were some of the things that you'd taken away from meeting him?
It was obviously a great opportunity to talk to him. We didn't have tons of interaction because there was a lot of moving pieces. He was filming a movie on set while we were there recording for the show. We also had some time a little bit after the events to kind of chat a little bit, and he's a very hard worker, and I appreciated the time that we had, and I think that he genuinely loves to be able to see people succeed in what they're doing and giving them a platform to share their story, and that's what a lot of it was about on the show, was about how these individuals come on here and share what they've been through or the hardships they've overcome or what challenges they may have faced in their life, and it's like, how can they come in here? And yes, they are physically competing, but it's like it's more than just that. And I think having him, pull us on there and kind of bring us together, him and his production team did a great job of casting the individuals. And obviously it would be great to have more time to talk, but it was it was really just a really unique experience to be able to share that moment and that time with him and know that how much that he put into it, not only on his side but also his production team, even Carrie and Golden Boy. That's, I know that's the name, that's his Instagram and Twitter handle, but they both spent a lot of time there, and to be able to share that moment with everyone was really cool. And not that I'm so grateful for this, and I made sure to enjoy every moment and, you know, make sure I congratulated him and thanked him for the opportunity.
Absolutely, definitely. The Rock, one of the best in the business, not just in sports, but just in all of entertainment and what he has done and what he's continuing to do. What about other staff members? You mentioned Golden Boy. Did you have the opportunity to speak with Alex Mendez as well as Carrie Champion?
No, we didn't have too much time to chat there. I mean, you could see them on where they were on the stage, but we didn't have the chance to interact with them. I've talked a little bit with them, on Twitter in terms of the events and all that. But it would have been really cool to spend a little more time with them. We had a little bit more FaceTime with the kind of behind the scenes and the production staff, and they were great. They were awesome. It was all obviously a long days. A lot of it was focused obviously on the production, and so there was lots of days where we were filming and then doing photos and doing interviews, and so it was really, I think, just again, like I said, unique experience to be able to kind of pull back that curtain and see how it all works. There's a lot more that goes into it than what you see on the end site. And just to be able to be a part of that and work with everyone was just, I'm so grateful for that, and I'm thankful for that time with them.
All right, well, you did your thing on the Titan game. All right, now speaking of being grateful, you've made people very grateful for your entrepreneurial endeavors, and you have a wine. You're involved in the art of winemaking called the G.O.A.T. wine. How did you come up come across the world of winemaking?
Yeah, so my parents loved wine. I was actually named after Chateau Margaux, which is a very popular region in France, and so I feel like it was kind of destiny to eventually get into it, to make life full circle. But I've done home production wine for a good number of years, just making my own batch. And I love the process of winemaking. I love how it takes a long time. You have to be patient. You plant the grapes. You eventually wait for them to, bud, and then you have the grapes, and then you harvest them. You crush them. You press them. You let them age in the barrels, and then you bottle them, and then you sip in the bottle. So it's at least a year, if not more, process. And I just love that process and kind of being behind the scenes and really seeing how this has a big parallel to life and fitness and career. I mean, you go to school for a good number of years to get your degree. You work for a good amount of time in your career to build up to the goal or to the position that you're looking for. And I just love those two parallels. And I think it really resonated with me because I was in the middle of my competition of training. And so it was at the end of 2015 after the CrossFit Games where trying to formulate what would be the best way to do this. And I was like, well, let's start now because I still want to compete. But it's if I can start a business and, again, combine my two passions and promote that message of work hard, wind down with everyone, then, why not? Just start it now. And so that's where it started the process. And so it launched the company in 2017 at the CrossFit Games in Madison, Wisconsin. And there was a lot of work and a lot of struggles that we faced and that I had to overcome. But it was really rewarding to be able to put all that work in and then launch the company in 2017 and then be able to have the wine to share with people. Because, we consumed it, we made it, and you have all the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. But to be able to share it with people and share it with the community, that's just I want to embrace everyone and help one another, and this was the kind of the way to do it. And so, like I said, our message is work hard, wind down. And that work hard, for me at the time, was in the gym and in training, but it could be to anyone and everywhere, whether that's career, family, school, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you wind down with a glass or two or a bottle with friends and just relax and enjoy the process because there's a lot of struggles and successes that you have in life. And I think it's really important to embrace the struggles but celebrate the successes and appreciate every moment you have.
Absolutely, and I think you're helping us. You have helped, and you continue to help a lot of people in that process of what you do in the world of winemaking. I want to stay with the industry of winemaking. The market is saturated. There's so many makers out there that are in the business of winemaking. What do you do to stay ahead of the game and to compete and to make sure that the G.O.A.T. wine is a reputable brand and a relevant brand in this competitive world of not just winemaking, but just in business in general?
Yeah, it was, and that's something like, I mean, there's a variety of wine out there, but it's, like you said, it's so saturated. There's so many other wine companies and brands out there, and our biggest thing was like, all right, well, let's kind of go around it differently. Let's launch within the fitness realm, and people think like, oh, like, how is it you train and drink wine? And for me, it's like, this is my life, this is my balance. Like a glass or two at the end of the day helps me relax. And so we're not going out there and saying, hey, like, it has less sugar, or, you know, it's healthier. We're just saying that you deserve it. Like, you got to earn your grapes. You have to earn your wine. Like, we want you to find that balance in life. And so for us, it was just being able to create this community of working hard and winding down, where, again, you earn your grapes, you earn your wine, and we're just telling you to find that balance. And I've had a lot of people say, like, well, I don't drink wine. I'm like, that's cool. You don't have to drink wine. Find something it is. Maybe it's eating bonbons on the couch with your kids. But for us, it's just like, it's building that community of like-minded individuals that are going to work hard towards our goals. They're going to obviously have struggles and successes along the way. We want them to kind of embrace that. And we want to create that community where the greatest of all time, whether that's the wine or that's something else in your life, is something you put an emphasis on. And when people think of greatest of all time, when we launched, we wanted something unique and different, and so that's why we went with the GOAT acronym. We have a picture of the goat on the label. We started with a short hawk bottle that kind of looks like a Tortuga bottle, Pirates of the Caribbean theme, but also wax on the top. So we wanted something different and unique to stand out. And a lot of people just kind of generate to sports when they think of GOAT, whether that's basketball or football or whatever it might be, but it could also be within the family, like who's the greatest of all time in your family. Maybe it's an aunt, maybe it's your mother, maybe it's career, maybe there's a mentor that you have that you look up to. And so for us, it was just like, it's not only about the wine, it's not just about the wine, but it's about the community and the people around you, and also kind of what you're celebrating and what you're living for in life.
Wow, that's a beautiful explanation right there. You could definitely relate that, as you said, not just in sports, but just in all areas and facets of life. Again, wine is something that's, like you said, there's some people that don't like wine, but the ones that do like wine, it's diverse. The palate is different, the taste is different. Some people like their flavors different. Some people like it, bitter, so semi-sweet, and things of that nature. What flavors of wine does your company offer?
A lot on blends. The GOAT is a Petite Sirah blend of Petite Sirah, Syrah, and Grenache. So I gravitate to blends just because I think that it's unique to have the different kind of grapes you have that you can blend together. And I think if you look at it as life, you have a lot of things in your life coming together and you make it all happen. Blends, I feel like, are a little bit easier to drink, and we've noticed with younger generations that are looking to get into wines, they gravitate towards blends because they're smoother to drink. Maybe they don't know much about wine, so it's like, hey, like, start off with a blend, see what you like. Our biggest thing is, like you said earlier, like, so many people have so many different palates, right? So maybe they like a really dry, bitter wine. Maybe someone likes a really jammy wine. And so we've really focused on, like I said, the blends. I love Petite Sirah. I think it's a really it's not as common as you see with like Cabernet or Merlot, but I love the taste and I love the feel, but I love the jamminess I can give wines. And so, like I said, we focus on blends kind of because we have that parallel to life with, like, you have so many things going on in your life, like how do you blend them together? And that's kind of the reasoning why we focus on the blends.
Wow, I'm looking at some of these flavors right here on the website, man. It's very, it's awesome right here. Like you mentioned, your company primarily focuses on blends, like you mentioned with the Petite Sirah and also with the Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is interesting. I want to ask you just, you mentioned about the grapes. What type of grapes do you use for the wine? I know a lot of people, some companies will use muscadine or they'll use other products, but what type of grapes do you use to make your wine?
So like I said, we focus on all our wines sourced from Paso Robles, but the GOAT is a blend of Petite Sirah, Syrah, and Grenache. The Cheerson that we have is a blend of Petite Sirah, Syrah, Grenache, and a little bit of Petite Bordeaux. They're both very bold and complex wines, but I would say that the GOAT is a little bit heartier, similar to a Cab. The Cheerson that we have, that wine was in memory of my sister. We dedicated it to her, and the label is actually one of her last paintings before she passed. And that wine is very similar to the GOAT, but it's not as bold. It has a little bit of peppery taste to it, a little bit lighter, more of a medium-bodied wine, where the GOAT would be more of a full-bodied wine. And then we have also Le Vigneron on there, which is a little bit lighter, maybe a soft-bodied wine or a light-bodied wine. That is also a blend. It's a blend of Zinfandel and Carignana. So again, we wanted to have a variety of wines where, like, if you have a palate that really enjoys the dark, heartier wines, you can go to the G.O.A.T. If you want something on the lighter side, then we go for the Le Vigneron. You even mentioned this as well. Everyone has so many different types of palates, and they only drink one type of wine. So for them to try something else, it might taste a little different, a little off. But our biggest thing is like, hey, like, drink what you like. I'm always exploring and trying new wines and new blends just because I want to, like, get more experience. It sounds kind of weird, but it's like the more I taste, the more I'll be able to kind of distinguish, like, what do I like, what do I don't like, maybe what I want to try more of. And that's something we encourage is like, hey, like, find something you like and drink that. You don't have to drink X varietal or X grape because someone told you to. It's all about kind of exploring. I think the same thing in life and career. Like, don't just feel like you have to go into this career. Someone tells you that, right? Find what you like, find your passion. And there'll be times where obviously people will pull you away, like, no, you have to drink this, or no, you have to do that. You don't have to. There's guides out there, and the guide is good, but also kind of figure out what you like to enjoy and what you like to do.
Oh, yeah, good explanation right there. And again, the wines, I'm looking at it right here. They're really some fantastic artwork on here. I want to ask you just about cultivating the wine. We hear about, California and New York and a lot of different states that are wine producers in with some awesome vineyards. I want to ask you, you grew up in Montana, but your business is headquartered in Las Vegas. Do you feel that Nevada has great vineyards where you're able to operate and cultivate some premier wine?
No, so we source all our grapes and wine from Paso Robles, California. That's a more well-known area. We started, the farm that we started with is in southern Utah, which is about 2 hours north of Las Vegas. And the climate's very similar there in California. There's rich history of winemaking there back in the 1860s. But again, like you said, people have, this idea of like where the wine's going to come from. There's that stigma that, wine from Utah, it's like, oh, why would I drink their wine from Utah? There are some vineyards in Montana. There are some grapes out here in Las Vegas and in Pahrump. But we do all the winemaking and source all the wine and grapes from Paso Robles just because it's a more well-known area. The wine that we make in Utah and that we made in Utah was good. They were younger grapes, younger wines. And when we started our project, we sourced our grapes from there. We would take them to a custom crush facility in California. And during that same time, we were sourcing some grapes for the G.O.A.T. from Paso Robles. And so as we went along, and as we kind of continued through this process, the first 2 years we did that. And after that, we realized like the winemaking part is the easier part. It's the wine selling that's actually harder because, like you said, it's so saturated out there. There's so many companies and brands, and you could have the best wine in the world, but if no one drinks it, how do they know it's the best wine in the world? So that was a pivotal point in 2018 where we moved to Las Vegas. And even though they have some winemaking here and some farm and some grapes here, we focus on moving everything in terms of production and sourcing grapes and wine from Paso Robles. And we've focused the past 2 years on expanding our brand, expanding the company, bringing more awareness to it because our biggest thing was we don't have a physical tasting spot, so how do we get people to come to our website? How do we get people to try the wine? We've done tons of in-person events. I thrive on that. I love getting to meet people and connecting with others out there. And obviously with the COVID, we haven't been able to do any of that, but I think it's really important where it's like people want to connect to something, and for us, it was about connecting to a story, connecting to the community, and connecting a story not only with the wine, but also the people that we met with. And so we approached it a little bit differently, and I think it's really important for, anyone out there, whether it's wine or any other product, it's like, how do you connect with your consumer or your customer and have a real relationship? And I think people are looking for that. They're looking for some genuineness, some authenticity. I think it's really important. That's something I've tried to maintain from the beginning because there's so many things out there, and the breadth and the depth of wine or the breadth and depth of any other product could be very far stretched. So it's like, how can I kind of connect with one another and have that personal relationship or have that personal connection over a multitude of places?
All right, so that's the greatest of all time wine, the G.O.A.T. wine that's available on the website. Margot, great job. And before we let you go, let audience know where can they find you on social media, as well as you mentioned about the fitness channel on YouTube and also the G.O.A.T. wine.
Yeah, so people can follow me on Instagram at 321GO, which is GAUX, and we also have the Goat Wine on Instagram. Our website is thegoatwine.com, so people can check out the wine varietals there. And then our YouTube channel is just Margot Alvarez, MARGAUX, and people can check out the workouts there. We have a good number of workouts over the past few months and years, so I hope that everyone enjoys.
Absolutely, and you heard it from her. She's Margot Alvarez. Margot, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the program.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.